so it says we're live again, and I'm hoping that that works. There we go, maybe. Okay, so let's see. I titled it, Welcome Back.
Okay, so today, are we ready to roll, Elaine?
I'm hoping that that works. Yes, I think we're ready to roll. I'll just keep messing with it in the background.
Okay, great. So continuing on with Clever, we're going to talk about supporting student learning. So ways to support it, Clever is committed to providing you as a teacher with the tools to keep your kiddo on task and ensure that your students aren't accessing each other's accounts. So student will allow you, or Clever as an app will allow you as a teacher to log on an entire class into an app. Once you're finished with the app, it will allow you to log out the entire class as well. You can launch an application for your whole class to ensure that all of the kids are on task and focus on the same task in the same app. If you have trouble beginning to troubleshoot student logins, or if your student can't access Clever, you can print and reprint student badges, which JCPS allows student badges for kindergartners through fifth graders. And we will talk about accessing the app, the Clever badges in just a little bit. So you can click on the Classes tab in the upper navigation bar. When you click on the Classes tab up here, you will be able to launch the application for the entire class or log out the entire class. This is particularly helpful if you have a class that uses shared devices, because if you're using something like Study Island, you want to make sure that all of your students log out before the next set of students log in. Why am I having issues today? I think we're all having issues, Elaine. Okay, so let's look at basically our QR code and what's going on with the QR code. These are going to be our badges that we're going to use for our kids. Okay, so Clever provides a safe alternative for all of our students. Many different things with them. We've seen a lot of teachers do something like this as far as placing them on index cards, printing the student's name on them, printing little cartoon caricatures of kids' faces. What most people or most teachers that I've seen do is they put them on an index card, they laminate them, and they put them on a ring so that as the students come in or the students need their login information, the teachers have it, they will go to the child's computer, the child will scan it in and be able to access their apps. So now that we've seen the badges, how do we create them for your students? To download and print a badge for elementary students, you will need to go to your teacher page. You select the student's name from the left-hand side of the control panel, and then you can click to download a badge. If you need it to print for your entire class, say it's at the beginning of the school year, you will go to the login tools student who won't log out of their program at the end of the class. What can you as a teacher do? You as a teacher from your teacher page can click on the login tools and log out that individual student, or you can log out the entire class. Where can you see if your students are logged into Clever during the class? You can see which of your students are logged into Clever during your class on the left-hand side of your teacher page. You will see each child's name and you will see if they are logged in or not logged in. If you have a student who cannot log into Clever, what can you do to help that student? You can generate a backup code for that student, or you can go to print a badge for that student and help them log in. The last question here is, it says that it takes your student a long time to log into an app. So let's say this kid is in student or science for us. You wish they could get more quickly on task. So what can you do as a teacher? You would be able to go in and launch that app for that student under the controls of the student individually or for the class as a whole. Where can you find and set up helpful class resources? From your teacher pages or from the Clever library. So you can create your own personalized teacher page to host any hyperlinks or apps that are free from the Clever library. You may want your students to use for your course. So you can go in and search the Clever library. You can add them to your teacher page and you can review them, see what you think about them, see if you think it's going to be appropriate for your students or not. They will not be able to see this app that you've added to your own personal page. They will only be able to see the app if you have added it and shared it to your class page for your students. The Clever Library, that is a place you can go to discover useful resources and automatically create accounts for your students. You can add these resources directly onto your teacher page again and then share them with your student pages. So let's see here. By default, you will have a teacher page for each section that you teach. You will also have the ability to create additional pages so you can address the needs of a subset of students. After you create the page, you can hit the share button in the upper right-hand corner of the page so that your students will be able to see that app. You can also customize the title page. You can customize the description and the icon. You can determine which students you want to see which pages. You can also add resources to each page. So these resources can be hyperlinks to a specific document. They can be a website, or they can also be a single sign-on app that is found in the Clever library app. You can also customize the title. So within your Clever library, you can determine which students you want to see. You can search for free resources and then install them to your teacher page. Clever will automatically create accounts for your students so that they can easily access it from their Clever portal. Even though these are free and limited versions, I would still check with Donna Hedges, who is in the IT3 department, to be sure that these apps can be installed to Clever. So here is a picture of what the Clever library is going to look like. You can search under subject matter. So once you get into the subject matter, say you go into math, it's going to allow you to search for certain age groups. It may say kindergarten through first grade, it may say second through fifth grade. It just allows you to search on different apps in that category. Again, there are countless resources for you to search out and to review before you add them into your students' portal. So let's say you want to search for a specific app. When you're in Clever, search for a specific resource name. In here, we are looking at code.org. So if you search in the search tab up at the top, if you typed in a C, anything relating to a C is going to appear in your resources. And as we see here, code.org appeared. It's going to give you a brief description of what it's about. It's going to tell you that it is a free app and the subject is in technology. You can also connect with other teachers that are using this app to see if they like the app, to see if there have been any reviews posted. And then if it is a free resource, it's going to give you the option to install code.org. And again, like I stated, before you install anything, you can install it for yourself to review, but before you install it actually into the portal for the students, I would check with Donna Hedges to make sure that that app is available and safe to install. Okay, Clever has added a new feature. It's called Analytics. You can now access analytics from the top right side of your toolbar. This feature will allow you to view your students' activity in Clever. So here you can look and see which resources your students have used, the last time they accessed the app, and it allows you to see specific resources to see what students have used. So as we look at this page of Clever Analytics, we can see that our unnamed student last accessed the Edmentum app and the Map Accelerator app 2 days ago. You can see that the third student down 21 hours ago accessed Edmentum. And then to the far right, it's going to give you contact information for that student. Okay, so the Clever Library, again, gives all teachers the ability to leave a review for an app that you've used. So hopefully it will help you determine if it's something you think you might be interested in or not. So what does the student portal look like? We'll go over this really quickly. The student portal is going to see apps that are shared with them. They're going to see teacher pages, and they're going to see categories that have been added by the school technology leader at the school level. Just a couple things. If your student uses a bunch of apps that are not currently in Clever, how can you add them to their portal? You would need to go to the software approval site at JCPS and go through the approval process. You'd love to add teacher website to your kids' portal because that is where you host a bunch of assignments. What can you do and how can you do that? You can definitely create a teacher page for those subset of students because that's where you would host your assignments. So basically on your home page, you would create a page, select the correct group of students, and add the resources that best meet their needs. If you want to make a teacher page just for your special ed students, can you do that? Yes, you can do that. You would definitely link your teacher website in your student portal. Simply click which teacher page you would like to add it to, and then click the add the link at the bottom right-hand corner. And then if you want to find an app in the library that starts with the letter C, how would you do that? You would just go to the search and you would type the letter C to see which resources appear. Okay, and then that is basically it. I know we've run out of time, but if you have any questions and you would like to email me, feel free to do that. My email is Michelle, michelle.brown@jefferson.kyschools.us. If you have software questions, feel free to email Donna Hedges for the software approval, and that's Donna, DONNA, .hedges, HEDGES, @jefferson.kyschools.us. Thank you. Thank you, Elaine.
You're welcome. Thank you, Michelle. We apologize for those sound issues. I really hadn't changed anything, and all of a sudden things were different. So thank you for sticking with us and going to a new link. So we have up next, we have Stephanie Roeder. And did I say that right, Stephanie?
Sorry. Yes. Yeah. That's awesome. Pretty much it.
Roeder, well, it's so wonderful to meet you face to face because we've been emailing back and forth. together, and you are going to be talking about with us today about personalized learning in the NTI and ELA classroom. And we are thankful for you. And if you will, just introduce yourself and let everybody else know a little bit more about you. And then you have a bunch of people that are watching live, and they will let us know that they have any questions, and take it away. And I can help you with sharing your screen and turning those closed captions on as well.
Okay. Actually, I have in part of my presentation, I have kind of the introduction part. So if you could help me share real quick, and then I can kind of start the introduction from there.
Absolutely. So if you go to the top right, there's 3 dots, and then you can click share screen. A new window will pop open. Oh, look at you. And then at the bottom of that presentation, there's the CC.
Can you see it?
I can. It looks great. Can you turn on just the closed captioning?
Okay, that part.
Okay, yep. So CC is in that. Looks great.
Okay. All right. So my name is Stephanie Roeder. I am a teacher at Olmsted Academy South. We are one of the Miracle Little Schools. And I'm going to talk about what I did to personalize learning during this NTI time in my ELA classroom. So I'm currently an 8th grade teacher. I've been teaching for 12 years, 9 years, and this is year 9 JCPS. I've been at OAS for 8 years. I'm also a Louisville Writing Project teacher consultant. If you've never done it, I highly recommend the Invitational Summer Institute. It is just life-changing. Highly recommend. So to start, I would just want to quickly touch on a couple of strategies that has helped me stay organized and sane during this period of time. A couple of things that I figured out. And one of them is I scheduled a daily morning message to be posted to the stream in Google Classroom every morning at 8 a.m. And several students reported when I kind of gave them a feedback survey that it was really helpful to them. There was one student who said when she heard the morning message, that's when she knew it was time to get up. You can't schedule all of the classes, like you can't click all the classes to post if you're going to schedule. So you do have to schedule them separate, but that just made it a lot easier for my kids to know what they needed to do every day. A lot of reminders and instructions and things like that. The other thing that I did is I set up rules in my email. Google Classroom does not seem to have a good system of notifications whenever you get a comment or work submitted or anything like that. It's not real easy to tell when you're looking at it, but I set up my email so that I would see that classroom folder, and I would know that there was something going on with students turning something in, or they had a comment or something like that. So that helped me to kind of filter and know where to start. So when we first started NTI this year, we were all kind of just figuring out as we went. So what my school decided was we decided to, or our leadership team decided we would rely on the choice boards for equity, so that students who were working on paper and students who were working on technology would have similar assignments or pretty much the same options. So our grade level would meet once a week and divide up the activities on the choice board by content. Then our PLCs would develop rubrics for the activities that we had chosen, and we would set them up in Google Classroom. So if you've never seen that before, this is what it looks like. And so when you're scoring, when you actually look at the assignment, you just click. And so I could go through and click which one. So we made it really simple that yes, you did it, or if you didn't, there's going to be comments for feedback. And again, this is how we started. So we divided that up by PLC, did that in our PLC, divided those rubrics up. We made Screencastify videos modeling how to complete the assignment, which I think a lot of us know how to do that or have probably done that. And then, of course, we gave our feedback to individual students by typing in the comments and the little private comments. So when you use the rubric, the student can expand this and kind of see what is on the rubric. But then I would have my comment down here, and the student may or may not even read the comment. And, that was just kind of what we did at first. That's kind of how we started, similar to what we would have done in person in class. But then I came to this big question. How do I keep my savvy middle schoolers motivated when they've begun to suspect they aren't actually getting grades for this. Because 8th graders, when they catch on, wait, you can't fail me if I don't do anything, because NTI grades can't harm them, according to the state. So they started going, do I really have to do anything? So I started trying to think outside the box. How do I motivate them when it's not about a grade? So what I came up with is maybe I could convince them to engage in the work if they were working in a way that they were comfortable with, that they enjoyed, and working on things that they genuinely believed that they needed to work on, like from their choice, like what they identified that they needed. So I set up a survey and pushed it out to all my students, and it was really simple. It literally just asked them, basically, do you like to read fiction or nonfiction? But I simplified it for my English second language students. How do you prefer to work from home? And what do you think you need improvement on? And I just tried to think of some simple things that would be simple for students to identify on their own. I considered doing a whole, here's all the standards and how confident are you? But I just felt like that was too complicated. So I simplified it. Some kids just would rather sit down on Study Island and work through a unit on Study Island and be done. Some kids would rather do something creative. So I wanted to give them that option of what they felt like they would be interested in. And then I gave them the option of what they feel like they needed as far as what they struggled with. So sorry about that. Once I got that information, I analyzed the responses that they gave me, and I looked at what would fit each student's preferences and needs and try to give each student at least 3 options. So this is kind of what it looked like. I took out all the identifying information, but over here, you can see that based on their answers, they gave me, I had lots of different information. So I sorted that by adding these columns. And I added anything I could think of that we might use or that I could use. And then I read each student's row. So this student, I said, okay, this kid needs punctuation. Okay, that might be no red ink. Writing a solid paragraph, so that kid needs help with paragraph writing. And this kid really likes online programs. So I'm going to stick with, these are good options. And then common lit, because they like stories that are made up. So there's 3 things that I could assign to that student as options for, okay, this is what you said you needed. This is what you said you wanted to work on. Here are your options. And I know this looks like a lot, but I didn't use all of them. I went by like what was most common so that every kid would have a few options. So like if I go all the way down, I know this looks like a lot, but I did it a few at a time. Like I just kind of did it as the answers came in and checked them off. So like here I have knowing what words mean when I read. So that would be vocab.com, writing a solid paragraph, summarizing a text was our reading log. This kid likes the idea of authentic audience, which would be any of these things. So this student would get all of these options posted. We had an extension class, separate Google Classroom class that was focused on like creating a primary source during this time of COVID-19. And so I linked the student to that and said, well, you said you were interested in this. So here's a place that you can go and, you could do this project instead of one of these other things in my class. And so that was really, really beneficial. Then I only assigned the assignments in Google Classroom to the students whose preferences and needs it matched. So if I posted a common lit assignment, I only tagged or checked the box for the students who needed common lit based on my spreadsheet. And then my morning message would look like this, where I told them, you have options just for you. Whatever you see are your options. Other people might have different options. And so as I mentioned, if you've never done the deselecting names, you post the assignment and go back and uncheck students that you don't want them to see it and they won't see it at all. And then I did this thing that just came to me. I gave feedback to individual students using Screencastify. And rather than do a whole lesson or I started out going and finding, oh, here's a video on theme or here's a video on whatever. I decided I needed to personalize it more. And so I started making videos that were directly to my students. And I do have the students name is on here, but I'm just going to show you kind of what it looked like because she got really excited and she really, really loved this. Good morning. I'm going to try to record my thinking in a video. Maybe it will be easier. I see Heath members are not able to go to church, so people will. And so I read through. Able to have this student is an ESL student, a very bright ESL student. But I knew that sometimes I have to help her with what she's trying to communicate and which words she's using and figuring out what she meant to say. So I go through and I kind of read to her, here's what it sounds like you're saying. And I kind of show her the corrections that I made. And then I share the video to her. And so she can watch and see what I did and how I corrected it. And that made more sense to her than trying to tell her, this all needs to be one paragraph or you need punctuation or whatever. It was easier for her to see what I meant. So that basically is how it worked out. And it worked out really well because kids got choices and they were more engaged with their options. So the next things that I want to do is I want to take my curriculum in the fall. We're using the EL curriculum and there is a new edition coming out, being released like over the summer kind of. Some of it's already kind of out, but I want to develop some asynchronous online lessons for the regular curriculum because that way I know that I'll be prepared if we are online next year, and set up things like pre-made videos and have it all ready to go. And then that way, if we are in person next year, I still have the option for kids who really enjoy I like to be able to sit down and work at my own pace kind of result that we've seen. We've seen a lot of kids that normally in class would be doing nothing. And they've just really been awesome during this time, surprisingly, because they like just being able to work through it or to work slower or faster or work in the afternoon. So I want to be able to try to give some more of that flexibility in the future. Another thing is this is a school-wide project we're working on. We're developing a library of video tutorials for students based on things that we see students needing help with how to do. So that if they've forgotten or something, there will be a place for them to go and find a video about it. And it will cover anything from school-wide expectations on how to title your file that you're saving or how to turn in something using Google Classroom or whatever. But those things that students might need, we're going to have that our staff and our students have made. We're going to work on those videos. Then the next step as far as personalized learning goes is in the future, and if I had more time and had thought of this sooner, I would have involved students a little bit more in them choosing their assignments rather than me narrowing it down for them. So identifying if you like to work like this, here's something you might want to do. And our school is getting Mastery Connect next year, which is an amazing data analysis service program. And so students will be able to see what standards they need to work on. So we'll be able to kind of use that and help them with choosing what they need to work on and where they need to go next and things. Then also another thing I want to do is incorporating some reflection where students would tell me what they chose to work on, what they learned from it, and what their next steps are. Because I think that's a really important component of personalizing learning when students are choosing, is students really being mindful of and having that metacognition of like, why did I make this choice? Was it a good choice? Should I choose something different next time? So that, they're kind of learning to be more independent. I'm going to continue to do the video recordings of feedback because it personalizes it more and it makes it easier for students to understand what I'm saying to them. Similar to if I was going to conference face-to-face, but this way, they kind of hear me say it, which a lot of my kids, for some reason, it makes more sense when I say it, regardless of even if I just wrote it. And then I really like the simple standards aligned single point rubrics. It just makes it so much simpler and straightforward to say, yes, you did it or no, you didn't, rather than this range. And then if it's a no, you didn't quite get it, then there's feedback on what needs to, how you can improve it. It just makes it simpler. So yeah, that's pretty much it. So if anybody has specific questions about what I did or wants templates or wants me to explain something in more detail, I'm open to being emailed and I'm open to sharing a lot of the things I come up with. So, but yeah, I guess I'm ready for questions if there's any questions.
Oh, Stephanie, you did great. There's a bunch of people in the chat that have thank you. They really, Kate said something about that. A rubric was so beautiful. I'd love you to go back to that slide and show everybody one more time about that. Um,
This one?
so, is there a video showing how? Also, yes. Let me make sure that they can see that. Is there a video? We had Anna Sanders who asked, "Is there a video showing how to develop rubrics in Google Classroom?" And Kathleen, a receiver, one of my teammates, she said we do not have that one, but she is sure that there is one out there that you could Google, but that may be something that we need to make. So
I'm happy to make one. It takes me like a few minutes, honestly. It's super simple. In fact, I can actually show you real quick.
Oh gosh, yes, that'd be perfect.
I'll show you since I've got some time.
Mm-hmm.
So let me go to create. So if I'm going to create a new assignment, over here, there's this little button that says rubrics. So let's see if it's going to let me. I don't know why it's not wanting to give me the rubric, but let me go back to one already. Oh, wait, there we go. So this is the button that will pop up, create rubric. I never could figure out how to like bring it in from Sheets. It never worked right. So I just use this. And so starts you out with just one criterion. So it might be, I don't know, might want the main idea. And then here I would always put the standard it had to. You put the points, I would put met, and I would put description. You clearly identified the main idea of the text. And then if I wanted to add a not met or not yet, and then I would just put CT for comments. And then I would add, however many criterion I wanted. So when we decided as a PLC what standard we wanted to focus on for each of the choice board activities, we might say, okay, this one's going to be informational writing. And so we would kind of decide what criteria was important to include. And then you do as many criteria as you want and you just save it. And then it's down here. And when you assign it, the students will see what the criterion are. And then, like I showed you, when the student goes to look at their work after you return it, now it's being slow. They can see where they scored. And I had students who might be like here, who might have a not yet. They can drop this arrow and expand it to be able to see what the description is on the criteria. And I might have a student that goes, well, wait a minute, I didn't have what do and then they'll turn it back in and I'll go back and change it. Like I can go back and change that score and then, resubmit it. So they can really easily see where they've improved and what they need to work on. So I always made a point, like if they didn't meet something, then I made a note, use this blue squiggly lines. They're usually a hint that you might need to go back and correct some conventions. So that helped to kind of just simplify it. And it was so much easier and faster to give feedback.
Yeah, Anna Sanders says, thank you. Oh my gosh, you're doing it on the fly. That is amazing. And she said it's easier than what she thought. And then Kate says, I may have missed this, but can you reuse rubrics from past assignments?
I haven't done that yet. Supposedly you can. Let's see, let me get rid of this one. There's supposed to be a way to reuse a rubric, but I haven't done it because it actually hasn't worked out that I've needed to. But it looks like if you had one saved, it looks like I could reuse a rubric from a different thing. So I could reuse this one. And so this is the one I'd created for a different assignment. So yeah, you can. There you go. I just haven't had to yet because all of my rubrics have been slightly different for these assignments.
I love it. And I'm even interested even further that question Kate just asked was, can, how you can reuse assignments into Google from other, even archived classrooms. I wonder if those rubrics would then follow, or they'll follow even to new for next year. So This just goes to show that, and I know, Stephanie, you're going to agree with me, that this just goes to show by building this infrastructure within Google Classroom, you are actually building like a history of things that you can reuse over and over again, as well as tweak. So we know that we need to differentiate every year because we have different students at different levels, but it gets better, and then you're really building a skeleton for what you would need the next year. So just wonderful. Thank you so much.
Exactly. This whole experience has been a chance for me to, in my head, I've been kind of thinking like, I'm kind of experimenting with some things and testing some things out. And I asked a lot of my students for feedback. I always give a survey at the end of the year, but I gave them the survey on, what worked in my classroom. And then for NTI, like what's worked well, what challenges have you had? And it was really, really helpful to hear what they said was helpful, which, the morning messages were helpful and the video feedback was helpful. And, so it was like, okay, these are the things that are working. Like, oh, good. Like it's working the way I hoped it would. So
Absolutely. Kate even just said, so she was on right before you. She said, I'm thinking if you have a choice board with common assignments, it might be easy from grading period to grading period. So this is just great. So thank you for teaching this on the fly and then also preparing this presentation for us, because now it's on the Power of Pause. So we will have it on the channel, and wonderful, wonderful. If you don't mind, Stephanie, just jump in that chat after you're finished. And if anybody has any questions for the next few minutes, I know that they'll give you a shout out and know. I want to remind, so thank you, Stephanie. I hope you have a great afternoon, or
Thank you.
Afternoon. Okay, so as we get ready to prepare for our next episode, I wanted you to know that all of these episodes are going to be cut into pieces so that you can find them easier. And the resources will be dropped into the description of that episode. So you don't have to worry about losing all of their awesome work and guidance with these different topics. Those topics are going to be left for you to find easily. So we're going to just jump over to our schedule for today. We just had Stephanie, and we want to appreciate her for all of her hard work and sharing. And next we have Donna Nearly, and she's going to be talking about competency-based education for our ESL and ECE students. And these students are near and dear to my heart because I was an ECE teacher before I was a digital innovation leader, and they are one of the most amazing students ever, as well as some of the tools that she is going to share with us will definitely help your general ed population students, because it helps all of us, just as if we're using our closed captioning here. If you didn't hear something or you had to mute it because somebody else said that, you can always read it. So it's just all these tools are amazing. So just make sure that you know, after that, we have digital learning with the Pear Deck and active learning to culturally responsive teaching with Hanna Lippmann and myself. She's going to be sharing that. And as I have just a moment, sorry to take your time, Donna, in just a second. When you go to our channel, make sure that you actually click subscribe. And the reasoning behind that, and it'll be up here on the right-hand side, the reasoning behind that is so that you can find the live link a little bit easier, as well as when we upload these new cut pieces, you will be able to find those in your logarithm when you go to YouTube. So, or it'll pop up here rather than all of some of these other things that pop up. These sessions will then pop up for you if you are subscribed. So that's awesome. While I'm also here, I want to make sure that you know that you can find a bunch of playlists. So we have playlists that will help you out, because maybe you're having trouble with Google Classroom and you need to go to our Google support playlist. We also have playlists that are for teachers as well. And then we have like example Study Island and then classified staff support lists. So you can share some playlists as well as these videos to others as well. So I'm going to go ahead and let you start and take it away. Good morning. How are you doing, Donna?
Good morning. Thanks for inviting me. And I am going to go to share screen for my presentation. So I'm going to go ahead and set that up.
Awesome. And if you need any help, I'm happy to help.
Yes. Need to, let's see. I'm going to share, and then I also want to make sure I set the closed captions. Okay, and let me see.
So if you just hide that little white window that is there, and then
Gotcha.
your closed caption, you just like it's an on and off button, and then that down arrow just makes it move to different locations and the size too. So
Okay.
there we go.
The bottom good and large, does that look good for you?
Looks great. Thank you.
Okay. And I need to reset, cut a little ahead of ourselves. Okay, do you want me to go ahead? Or wait a second?
Oh, nope, you can go.
Good to go? Okay, thank you. Okay, so we are here to talk about competency-based education for ELL and ECE students. This program is really a comparison to traditional education. So when we think about competency-based education, I'm comparing it with traditional education that we see in our classrooms every day with set bell schedules and the Carnegie Minutes seats, the specific seat time. So competency-based education is a different system, and we're going to talk about that today. The presentation was a partnership between Pam Lang and I. Pam is a teacher at Seneca. She is a ECE teacher. She's also ESL endorsed. She and I worked together last year as coaches for the Aspen Challenge team at Iroquois. We fielded the only exclusively ELL student team, and they actually won the best collaboration team prize. We were very proud of them. And we used many of the techniques in competency-based education. So to provide a definition, competency-based education is a flexible method of teaching that enables students to progress as they demonstrate mastery of academic content regardless of time, pace, or place of learning. Again, different from traditional classrooms where time is very much set by the teacher and the system. You have a 48-minute period. With competency-based education, time is the variable. What does that look like for teachers? Well, teachers design instruction that meet the needs of individual learners, and those learners are assessed on their ability to demonstrate their content knowledge and skills and dispositions. And ultimately, mastery is assessed on evidence that students create. So when we think about a competency-based classroom, not unlike a traditional classroom, teacher relationships are critically important. They're imperative for academic progressions. Students and teachers have to know one another in order to work successfully together. And one of the aspects of competency-based education is that educators develop learner profiles with students that indicate what students' interests are, what their career goals might be, things that they're afraid of in education, things that they are aspiring to in their lives. So it's an interview process between the educator and the student, and it reveals lots of information about that person, and it helps the teacher devise a very personalized plan for their learning. Competency-based education is absolutely set upon the foundation of the 3 pillars of JCPS. And so racial equity is achieved through the teacher-student knowing one another. It's critically important that there's equitable learning for all students in order for competency-based education to be successful. Again, with culture and climate, the teachers and the students create a place that's safe to learn. Students feel confident in their learning. They get feedback with regularity that can go into their approach to their learning. And the backpack of success is critical because students' work results in evidence that they can then place in their backpack. So the population of students that we're talking about today are ELL students and ECE students. And the reason we've pulled this out as a separate population is because sometimes when people think about competency-based education, changing the classroom, taking away some of the traditional systems, taking kids out of desks and putting them at tables or in other learning scenarios, sometimes their question arises, can these populations of students handle that? Can ECE students have self-management technique? Can English language learners get what they need in order to be successful in language and content? And so absolutely yes is the answer. And when we look at JCPS, JCPS students we're about 12,000 English learners, and that's about 125 languages. And we expect those numbers to rise. With ECE students, there are about the same amount, a little bit over 12,000 kids, and every JCPS school enrolls students with IEPs. And so if we stop a minute and take an equity check, nearly 1/5 of those students enrolled in JCPS fall in the categories of ELL or ECE, and some students we know inhabit both of those worlds. This is a significant population, and it's critical that this population, their academic success is addressed for the overall academic success of our district. And for a compliance check, IEP and ESL accommodations both are met through CBE, through competency-based education lessons with students, and its focuses on personalized instruction. This is an image of ECE class at Iroquois and English language learners partnering together. They worked together on a social studies lesson, walking across Kentucky on a giant map. ESL and ECE and ESL students both report these four struggles with learning. Both say pacing of lessons is sometimes difficult. Maybe teachers move too quickly, or they don't understand the steps and progression. Critical thinking skills are often a challenge for English language learners who may not have had formal education before they came to the United States, or they came from an educational system that did not encourage critical thinking. With limited literacy skills, both groups of students can experience limited literacy. In the case of English language learners, they may not be literate in their first language. And so teachers have to ascertain if a student comes to us with a different first language, Spanish or Somali, they may not be able to read or write in that language, but speak it. And so English is their first language where they're actually learning literacy skills, reading and writing. And limited numeracy skills, in the example of a student with an IEP, this may be part of their learning differences, that they have difficulty managing numeracy. And so competency-based education looks at those four really critical factors of learning and addresses those directly. And you'll notice the icons on the slide. So racial equity is met because these students' needs are being met, and also it creates a culture and climate of safety. In the image that you see, Taye is really struggling with organizing some, it was a science lesson. He was looking at the biology, the system of growing a plant, and was struggling because of the vocabulary. And so the teacher integrated photographs and pictures to support that student. But again, critically thinking what order do things go in often challenge ELL and ECE students. So with CBE, with competency-based education, learning is the constant and time is the variable. What we mean by that is that the student learns the lesson, he or she is mastering the content, and it takes the amount of time it takes. So some students may master a concept quickly and move forward to the next standard. Some students need to stay a little bit longer at that point and really understand the content and the skills that they're being asked to master before they move forward. And so the teacher is managing how students learn and what their progression is based on their mastery level, not the time we're going to cover this on Monday and this on Tuesday and this on Wednesday. Do these students have mastery of these skills, and how do I support these students move forward? They learn in varied arrangements. They might be in a classroom, and they might be in a museum. They might be on the soccer field doing some lessons. Students work on competencies and sequencing. So they're not only talking about the content of the course, but also the skills that it takes to manage the work. And their assessment, their testing is evidence of their learning. So the backpack of success, where students prepare products, evidence. In this instance, this student is providing, he's going through his passion project, but his method for evidence was to create a slide presentation. This is a kid whose aspiration is to be a writer in life. And so his passion project was on the power of writing. This is the culmination. And so he's doing this presentation. This was assessed as his summative assessment. And language is a competency that is incorporated into learning. Students can learn in their first, second, third. Some of our students have 5 languages. Their product and evidence are produced in English, but they can work in their first language. And also CBE ultimately creates this equitable learning environment. In this instance, these students had done work that built them to hosting a forum where John Yarmouth came and spoke to them, answered questions. But in this sort of a scenario, the students' strengths are amplified. So they, as interviewers, they as speakers, they also built confidence because they felt prepared to talk to a public official. The young girl who's standing there as the moderator, she has skills in public speaking. So the class nominated her to lead the discussion. So the students work together to create this context of culture where they also know their own strengths and they become active agents in their own learning. So the remainder of the presentation, I'm going to give you about 4 examples, if we get through them all, of how teachers can create community collaborations to work toward competency-based education. So the evidence that is produced is authentically connected to community partnerships. Most of these examples will be high school examples. Pam and I are both high school teachers, but all of these techniques and strategies that we're showing you, absolutely yes, work from K through 12, and you as teachers would modify how the students would address what their standards are, what their learning targets are. The first example you'll see here is the JCPS Backpack League. I had the true pleasure of being a Backpack League teacher last year in the Mayan Adventure. And so these students, many of them English learners, but we studied in the classroom and we talked about culture and all aspects of the Maya. And we were on a scavenger hunt at the zoo looking for the animals of the Maya. So this was a formative assessment if they could identify and put together some materials from the classroom and bring that out to the field. But students learn competencies and skills when they do these community collaborations. Their prior knowledge is used and valued. So if somebody knows a lot about animals, man, they're going to be the expert on that lesson. We're going to activate their prior knowledge to support the entire class. And assessment is, again, measures their mastery of the lessons. This is a partnership through the Food Literacy Project. These students were working to build a cob oven. You'll note the shape of the oven, and the kids are all doing a very hands-on. It's an earthen structure that's now a legacy project that they've built at the Iroquois farm. And you'll see in the other picture, Lul is cooking a recipe. And so the students partnered with the Food Literacy Project and covered many content areas. So in math, they did a geometry lesson. The ELL students focused on geometry lesson where the parabola was the focus of the shape. The social studies looked at inquiry-based essay on culture and global food literacy. In English language arts, they wrote a family recipe and they had to identify the steps and the ingredients. The science chemistry, they cooked their dish. And for digital literacy, they wrote the digital cookbook. In comparison, those students who were ECE students, perhaps they didn't do the geometry lesson, but they did measurement of the oven. In social studies, those who couldn't master the inquiry and the essay, they were supported by drawing 3 scenes of family life and presenting that to their peers. The rest of the lessons were fairly similar. So all to say, teachers are not going to be required with competency-based education to make individual lessons for each of the 25 or 30 or however many kids are in their class. they create they take the standard, they create the units, they look at what the idea the students need to learn from those standards. If you do have a community partnership, what are the products that may be possible? But then you support each individual group of students in this way. The ECE students got a different focus for their lessons, but everybody was contributing toward the success of this community partnership. The Speed Museum is a fantastic partner for us at Iroquois and for schools all over the district. Thinking about NTI and those of all of us who are teaching and learning from home, they've created something they're calling Museum from Home. They had always had a very healthy teacher-focused, educator-focused online presence, but now they're really creating tools that we can use as distant learning. And there's a link, I hope you look at it later, for its resources for a variety of tools from the museum. What we did with the museum in the classroom was work to assess observation and analysis skills by examining works of art. And that was really across the content. If you'll notice the example, this is one of the tools that they've just posted, the worksheet, and you guys could look, there's many varieties. We just selected this painting by Marc Chagall. But it's a worksheet that parents at home or teachers could download or put onto your Google Classroom and share. But it asks students to look at a work of art and then to assess it in terms of language. So select a noun. It says look at a verb. So it asks the student to look at the painting and to use that to help them answer, fill in the blanks. And it's absolutely, a student could do this independently, but for ELL students and ECE students who needed additional support, it could be a graphic organizer that teachers walk through with the students. This is the same painting. They have a set of art cards. You can also download those, but they have images of permanent artworks that are available for teachers to work with. And so in this instance, we looked at a lesson for ECE students and sort of what can their experiences be working with these art cards. And we took the science, and Pam created this lesson. So we want to think about teaching critical skills. So take this card and make some scientific observations. We wanted the students to compare and contrast. They could use a T-chart or a Venn diagram. Again, we're providing guidance, but just for the sake of this conversation, trusting that you as educators can visualize what this would look like. We asked students just to identify from this image the living and the non-living things. And we said, students always want to know, well, how many do I have to do? So we said maybe select 5 things. But by using the art cards and selecting different images in science, this different stimuli gives kids who sometimes struggle with textbooks and nonfiction, and sometimes there's a negative connotation about those sorts of resources in the classroom. If they've had failure using those sorts of pictures or textbooks or worksheets in the past, this is a way to show them something very different. We're asking them to do the same things. Use your skills of observation. Think about this critically, compare and contrast. But by providing a different stimuli, we're giving students a way to sort of take a break. It sort of surprises them sometimes. They're not really sure. This doesn't really look like a science prompt or stimulus. And so it allows kids to sort of think about things in a different way and activate their critical thinking, activate their literacy skills, but they're working toward mastering a science standard, and you'll see the standard that Pam picked below. We also use competency-based education, or in the competency-based classroom, we think about social emotional health. Again, this is not completely different from any classroom that you're teaching in today or in the past. These are the same ideas. We want kids to feel safe. We want them to feel welcome. We want them to be have high expectations for themselves and be successful. But these sorts of partnerships can really focus on all aspects of the learner. It's really focusing on the whole child. And in the instance with the Little Loom House, which is here in Jefferson County, and do come to schools, they have online presence, and they also welcome field trips. This example is really to talk about students' social and emotional well-being. And so working in the workshop or in the classroom and doing these really tactile, hands-on textile making activities, for the ELL, for immigrants and refugees, it often connects them to their home cultures. Weaving and textiles are found in every culture, and many of them have had this experience or report seeing this done in their families or other places in the countries, their home countries. And at the Little Loom House, they make videos available both in Arabic and Spanish language as well as English language. So it supports those who are still learning English but want to have more information in a home language. It values skills and creativity, so kids can feel really successful and feel a lot of pride that they've produced something so tangible. And for ECE students, it's hands-on. They're doing the work. They have a pattern, they're following specific directions. They get to choose the colors they may want and the pattern to some extent. And it's really an accomplishment in self-awareness. So for both of these groups of students that often report to teachers and others that they feel less accomplished or they're not sure they're on par with their peers, these sorts of tangible activities give kids very real examples, hands-on examples of how successful they can be. And so, you know, maybe an idea that you take the coaster that the students made and you put it at their place. And so when they're frustrated or they're stressed about a lesson they're having trouble mastering, you can show them this successful product that they've made. This is evidence. This would be photographed and put into their backpack. But you can say, look, you didn't know how to weave before you went to the loom house or before they visited us, and look at this beautiful product that you made. So yes, absolutely. You can read this vocabulary. You can read this text. You can write these sentences. You are a very successful student. You look at this. This is a great example of how accomplished you are. And we see that bolsters students' sense of self-confidence. Those were pretty much formative assessments. We want to give you an example of a summative assessment. The We Day organization is a wonderful organization. We Day Kentucky is also, I've linked it here for you guys to look at later. But this is a program that operates in Kentucky. It's teachers and students can become involved. You can become a We School, and there's supports online, but you can compete in community service projects and also in a film project. So our students competed in the We Film for Change, the inaugural competition for the We Day Kentucky. So the summative assessment was that for students to create a film, those students who needed extra support, the students who would have been classified, some of them as ECE, and other English learners who were less confident, we supported them by moving them to a Google slide deck that was their creation based on the same topics that the students made the films. And so 2 teams of students knew they were going to compete in the film competition. There was a rubric that clearly identified what skills and what components of the project needed to happen. And then the students set about to do the work to create the films. Those were matched by the teachers to standards in social studies and humanities. And so students created this film project or the Google slide deck, and they were completely aligned to standards. As a summative assessment, we are very proud to report that both teams that submitted films to the contest took first place. So the one team won first place in high school and the other team won first place in under 25. Their topics were the struggles of immigrants in American schools with stereotyping and bullying. And the other film focused on empowering women around the world to pursue their education. And both of those films are linked at there. And we certainly hope that you'll watch those. So just to sort of bring this around and give you some final things to think about, The key points with competency-based education, and again, absolutely, this works for every student. Every student would be successful with competency-based education and these strategies and techniques. But we really want you to focus on these key points for English language learners and ECE students, that students' accommodations are and can be met. So accommodations and compliance are a component that we as teachers deal with every day. And so competency-based education just takes knowledge and coordination at the school with the teacher and the folks in the school to make sure that the lessons are meeting the needs of the students. In some ways, this is often easier than traditional classroom because you could deviate, and it's all about differentiated learning and personalized learning. Teacher-student relationships are critical to success, as they are in any classroom, but because we're asking students to put themselves out there, to take risks, to push themselves, to do something they may never have tried before, to do very hands-on, very tangible, to work in teams, to push their learning in directions maybe that they're not completely comfortable. These relationships are critically important so students know that the environment is safe, that their teachers and other educators support them, that they can come for help from their peers, that there's this culture of learning and support in the classroom so everybody feels like they know who to go to, where to go to get supported so they can be sort of fully actualized as a learner in the classroom. Learning is the constant and time is the variable. I've said that several times, but it's critically important. Students learn at the pace that they learn it. Some people get things really quickly because they're interested. Some people it takes a little bit longer. Some people have a focus they want to take longer. They can linger a little bit. At deeper learning focuses on digging deeper into the topics that they're looking at. So mastery is the student is in charge based on how they're pursuing their learning with their mastery, with the support, obviously, of their teachers, of the educators in the learning community. So it creates equitable learning environments when you're involved with competency-based education. People get what they need individually. So if I need more time, I get more time. If you're flying through it, you are supported and you can keep going. So it's an equitable learning environment. It also provides evidence of backpack of success. So we have lots of evidence that students can put into their backpack and have readily available when they do their defenses. For those three key points throughout their education. And it promotes a strong classroom culture. What we've seen is when students take risks, other students take note. And when you step up and say, I don't really know how to do this, but I'm going to give it a try. If the students all feel supported, students who may not necessarily feel very comfortable will be bolstered by the success of their peers and also by the support of their peers. And we have seen students, in one instance, one student who had been at our school and had never spoken publicly in class, just refused. After 3 days in an environment of competency-based education, when asked who would like to read, he raised his hand. So that's maybe an extreme example, but it is true that students can build their own self-confidence, support each other, and feel completely at home in a competency-based education classroom. And it certainly works for both English language learners and ECE students. So thank you for letting me present. And Pam Lang and I, our contact is on the slide. We encourage you to watch the videos that our students prepared and also look at the other materials that are being made available on the slides.
Donna, you have a lot of people in the chat that are saying thank you so much and great share, but I want to let you know I truly love this quote of when students take risks, others take note. So other students do take note. That is yes, they do. And even I think to add to that, they definitely take note when us as teachers take risks and step out and model that lifelong learning for them and let them know that we're constantly learning, and it's okay to feel out of your comfort zone, and that that's part of life. We've always felt out of our comfort zone every time we've learned something, whether you realize it or not. So wonderful, wonderful share, and we appreciate you, and we hope you have a good afternoon.
Great. Thank you.
You're welcome. Up next, thank you. Up next, we have Hanna Lippmann, and she is a teacher that is a champion of one of the Miracle Middle Schools, and she is going to share with us her digital learning with Pear Deck, and then active learning as a culturally and responsive teacher. So I want to say hello, Hanna. How are you doing? She is going to jump in just a second. I know she is. So as I go ahead and let you know some other things, we have a bunch of different videos that are going to be cut up from these longer live episodes. And as you come back and view these, make sure that you check out the descriptions of those, because the information underneath the description will be their presentation, and so you won't have to go and try to find this document and then when that session will be on there. So make sure that you take note of that, as well as when you go to the channel, click that subscribe button, because you will get notifications of when those, and you can turn them off if for some reason you want them to be turned off, but the main point is it's easier for you to find when we go live, as well as when we upload any new content for you to find. You won't have to search. Just a little tidbit, when you do go into a channel, you can search channels directly. You don't need to use the search that's up here. You just need to use the search that's down below within the channels page, because that will allow you to search the channel. And check out some of those playlists that we have already organized for you, because those will be very beneficial as well, and you can share those with people. So, hello, Hanna. How are you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Can you guys hear me now?
You are perfect. Yes,
Okay.
I can hear you. So sorry.
Okay. Oh no, it wasn't letting me talk earlier. So.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Well, we're glad to have you, and I can definitely help you share your screen, turn on those closed captions as well, and we are excited to learn from you.
And do you happen in your slides to have the Pear Deck already? Because I was going to use the add-on Pear Deck feature so people could actually try it out as well.
Absolutely. So, yes, do you have that pulled up on your computer? Okay. So we will be able to see everything once you share your screen.
Okay.
And if you'll go to the top right-hand corner of this tab, that's the Hangout, you'll see 3 dots, and then you click Share or Present, I think, and then, yep, you got it. So
okay, cool.
Now what everybody will see, and once you click Present, you can turn on those closed captions, and then even if you, so go to your top, oh, I'm sorry. There you go. Go to your presentation.
Thank you. Sorry.
It's okay. We are all learning. And then
well, you just said being okay with the being uncomfortable, and right now
yes, no, it is fine. And if you when you do click present for your presentation, you can click the closed captioning button, and it'll turn it on. And then but you just take it away. You got this.
So I'm hitting my start for our Pear Deck, so give it just a second. Can you guys see that at least?
We sure can.
Okay, and I'm gonna go in through instructor pace activity, because I'm gonna lead us through this for today. So whoever is joining us, feel free, as soon as this comes up, it's gonna prompt you to go to joinpd.com, and there's gonna be a code for you to pop on in. And you're going to be able to see those slides as we go through, and it's going to prompt you at times to maybe answer some things or draw.
This is awesome. So I'm going to go ahead and follow along with you too.
Awesome. Thank you. And it seems like, of course, the internet's a little slow, but it should be popping up. So thank you guys so much for this opportunity. I'm very excited to present on this. So.
Absolutely. So we that's one of the backbones of this channel is to show JCPS the awesome things that other teachers in JCPS are doing, because I truly believe it's a team sport. So we are in
Oh,
this together.
absolutely. So it should be up on your screen by now. You can see up here it says joinpd.com, and you're going to type in the code BXCWH. And I'm going to give you guys about 30 seconds to do that, just so I can stay within the whole 30 minutes of this presentation time. And yeah, so I'll let you guys log in.
This is perfect. I love it. So I'm already in, and I've put that link also in our chat. So if those viewers that are watching, which just to let you know, you have 23 people here hanging out with you, and they will join us in that joinpd.com and then put in that code. And I'm going to go ahead and put the code in the chat as well, so that you don't have to wait.
Yeah, and as you go through, for some reason you get kicked out, the code will always be up in this right-hand corner. So you can always just go back to the joinpd.com and it'll log you right back in.
That's a cool part. Yes.
It is. It's an awesome feature with students when they're like, oh, it kicked me out. I'm like, oh, but you can get back in. So digital learning with Pear Deck, active learning is culturally responsive teaching. And the first thing that I would always like to start, like any class or any presentation, is what do you wonder about today's topic? So on your screen, you should be able to see that on the right-hand side or below that you can pop in and put in a little comment there. And then as a teacher, I can hit show responses. They'll all be anonymous, I promise. So when I click here, I can see how can I use Pear Deck for my high school science class. Oh, I love that question. So as questions pop up, they'll begin to show up here. And just for time's sake, I am going to continue. We'll see a few more of these as we go. So I just wanted to give a quick introduction about myself. I teach at Newburgh Middle School for JCPS. I've attended the University of Hawaii at Hilo for my undergrad. I've also attended a few summers at the Breadloaf School of English, and I'm currently at the University of Louisville. Before coming here to Louisville to teach ELA, I was working in autistic support in Pennsylvania and Hawaii, and I love to climb, do yoga, teach yoga, go hiking, and coach running. So Pear Deck, what is it? Pear Deck slides give teachers the ability to engage and assess every student in every seat, no matter what grade or subject. Using Pear Deck will help you create an interactive and community-focused classroom that builds confidence and comprehension. So answering that person's question from earlier, you asked about science. Absolutely, in high school science class, you can totally use Pear Deck. This is not gauged for just one specific grade level or just one specific type of student. So what does Pear Deck offer? So it uses formative assessments and interactive lessons. Slides that they help you create for your beginning of your lesson is going to help to introduce your lesson and get the minds moving in the classroom. During lesson slides in this section could be used to prompt additional thought, discussion, or deeper engagement needed for those formative assessments. And of course, the end of the lesson is going to be where you wrap up the class with opportunities for reflection and exit tickets. I will tell you, in my own classroom, I am always very amazed at the reflections that my students do have on the content. So while maybe during the lesson, the form assessment, I'm like, oh, I have to go back over this, but that end of the lesson reflection and exit ticket, it's always wonderful to recap what the student is learning and catching on to. And then it's a great way for me to check where do I need to continue some work the next day with students. They also have a wonderful slide and lessons created for critical thinking, social emotional learning, math, social studies. You can totally incorporate science here. And I know recently they just added vocab. So there are all of these slides from the beginning, the during, the end, and all of those other wonderful slides. You can adapt and change them to the purpose of your class. So as part of Pear Deck, maybe some of you noticed at the beginning, when you go to present, you have two options. And I really love this because while I'm using right now in this presentation, I'm using the instructor pace activity. this is going to be, when you are giving your mini lesson, when you are presenting maybe to other peers. But the student-paced activity mode is beautiful as well, because this is going to be when you are doing more of your project-based learning, or when you are wanting students to work at their own pace so that you are able to go to certain tables and maybe work one-on-one or in a small group with other students. So you probably are asking a little bit like, but what else about Pear Deck? So I do have this short little clip from Pear Deck. They're amazing, and we're gonna watch this quick little video. Hopefully it pops up fast.
You have a lot of people that are excited to use Pear Deck next year, and this is definitely helping.
Yes, absolutely. And sorry guys, my internet's a little slow, but it should pop up. Here we go. Okay, so I wanted to throw in this short little video because I know that I am jumping through a lot of the beautiful pieces that Pear Deck can help offer you as a teacher. But the biggest thing that I do want to focus on is that component of the active learning and then the culturally responsive teaching that I believe comes from using Pear Deck. So active learning. Active learning engages students in the process of learning through activities and or discussion in class, as opposed to passively listening to an expert. It emphasizes higher order thinking and often involves group work. So with that active learning, students are, of course, engaging in the course materials. You're hearing every student's voice in the room, and you're getting that increased performance. So the biggest thing I want to point out here with using Pear Deck that I have recognized in my own class is when I use the student pace with my students, or even when I am, using the instructor pace, there is this beauty of those different questions and those different active slides that you use where students are putting in their answers. Everybody's voice is then heard. You can take a vote. Say there's, 3 options on a short story that they could read. They could all vote on which one that they want to read. So there is a way that each student's voice is heard, and then it also is heard anonymously. So what I noticed for this is that I'm not going to go back in slides, but when we go forward, you'll notice as people and students put in their responses, they go in anonymously. The name is not attached. This teacher will see those names attached later on, but the students never see that. So for my students who are a little bit more reluctant to raise their hand and speak out in class, or for my EL students who, they want to say something, but maybe they can write it better, or you do have a student who is having trouble forming their sentences. This is a great way where they get to put out their thoughts, their ideas, they get to engage with the content, but they are able to make those mistakes and not feel so embarrassed when they do. The engagement with the course material, I just noticed, at least for my students, instantly using those bell ringers and having those slides right away. My students know right away when they come in the classroom. Once they sit down, they get their iPad out and they instantly log into Pear Deck. So right away, they are engaging with the Pear Deck, and then they're right away engaging with whatever prompt I have for them to do as our opening. And then the increased performance here, I am going to read directly from here, but active learning provides students many opportunities to re-engage with the same material, leading to better understanding, deeper thinking, and higher levels of achievement. I don't know about you guys, but cutting up a bunch of little pieces of paper and constantly handing them out to get an idea or to take on a little mini formative assessment was becoming really daunting. But using Pear Deck and just embedding every once in a while a little slide, it allowed me, as students were answering questions, for me to check, okay, are we ready to move on to the next part, or do we need to stop and have students discuss this topic more? Do they need to dive in a little deeper? So active learning, here are some beautiful statistics that Pear Deck has given us. And the two that I want to focus on the most, because I know it's going to help lead us into this idea and the importance of culturally responsive teaching, are the two that are on the far left. So we have our 50% and then that 100%. So active learning can have the achievement gap between Black and white students and the gap between more and less affluent students. And then we also have that 100%. So active learning can eliminate the achievement gap between female and male students in traditionally male-dominated disciplines. As you can see with both of these that I'm pointing out to you, we have that achievement gap being lessened or just completely being eliminated, because with Pear Deck, every voice being heard, and I am going to go back, because we have that engagement with the material, how every student's voice is heard, and that increased performance, that active learning really helps to make sure that every student in our classroom is being met at their level, and then they're able to incorporate themselves into the class just as much as a teacher I am taking on seeing them as an individual student and incorporating them into my class as well. So that brings us to culturally responsive teaching. So culturally responsive teaching focuses on improving the learning capacity of diverse students who have marginalized educationally, centers around the affective and cognitive aspects of teaching and learning, concerns itself with building resilience and academic mindsets by pushing back on dominant narratives about people of color. With using Pear Deck, the thing that I have noticed the most is my students who normally would be pushed to the side wouldn't have their voice heard. This is a way that I am making sure as a teacher that all of my students' voices are heard, that I am using something like technology that is, as we think about it, our 21st century students, our students of this generation, we have to tap into their cultures, and Pear Deck is one of those cultures, the way of valuing and incorporating what our students know and like to learn by into our daily instruction. So for me, for Pear Deck, I love the fact that a lot of students say, oh, this is just like playing games, or, I've added in random, TikTok videos to help them understand something. It is a way that students, they almost see it like using social media in a way, because of that responses going up and everybody's little thing pops up, and they really love that they are being included in the content that is being taught. So it can seem daunting using Pear Deck the first time, but I just wanted to give you these 3 simple tips that can, and I love this from Cult of Pedagogy, that can really help you to begin to use Pear Deck, and they also kind of link straight into that active learning. So the first one is gamify it. So most games employ a lot of cultural tools you'd find in oral tradition, so that repetition, solving a puzzle, making connections between things that don't seem to be related. What's awesome with Pear Deck is there are different things where you can have students circle, you can have students move different puzzle pieces together, you can have them read aloud something from the slide, but then you also can include videos, you can include short answer and long answer responses, multiple choice. So there is a way to gamify your presentation. And then make it social. Organizing learning so that students rely on each other will build on diverse students' communal orientation. So here, what is nice is with Pear Deck, and as we get into some of the example slides we're going to go into, you'll see there is a way, as you put in your responses, it does show up and the students are responding to each other. Students are responding to then the prompt as well, but they are working together to get the answer. And then the nice thing is too, if you use that student pace mode, as answers come in, it's like they're feeding off of each other. And then the last one is Storyify it. Diverse students learn content more effectively if they can create a coherent narrative about the topic or process presented. So in that student pace mode, you might have a slide where you have students working through like a story using the Pear Deck slides to help them to better understand the content that you are showing them or the standard that you are working on. Okay. So I know we have about 10 minutes left, so I wanted to give us some time to work and practice on using these interactive slides. So yeah, here we go. So here's a way to gamify it. So true or false, Pear Deck can be used to create an interactive and community-focused classroom that builds confidence and comprehension. So you are choosing one of the options here. It should be over to the right-hand side where you click true or false, and then I can come here and show your answers. Okay, so we got one person saying that true. Good job, yay. You can give yourself
I love that they're live too, Hannah. It's like as if now they so I just saw number 2 person popped in. So this is great because it's live, and you can wait to show that information too, it seems. So love it.
Absolutely. So normally I would have the slide. I would either have a timer. Pear Deck does have timers. I like to usually keep it on my phone, and I will then turn that timer off. Everybody knows. And then sometimes we do a drum roll. Sometimes we, I've had people pretend that they're playing instruments. So, whatever the students are wanting to do to kind of get excited about the answer. And then as I can see here, 6 people are putting in their answers now. And, it's a great one too, because students can see if, say we had one person here in false, it's an awesome ability where the students are helping each other. So I'll say, okay, I see that we have one person in the false and we have so many in the true. Can somebody from the true, whoever is willing to speak up and talk, like, why did you think this is true? And then they're able to teach each other, and it's not just teacher focused.
Chelsea Haynes in the chat said, if we are NTIing, I love that term, NTIing, in the fall, Pear Deck is a great tool for asynchronous learning. So this is awesome.
Yes, thank you, Chelsea. Hopefully our next slide pops up. There we go. So here is one where you have the option to draw or type. I have some students, they're very, very, everything needs to be neat. So there is a little text box where you can put this into a text box if you don't like to draw. But it is a great way. I love these drawing ones, especially by the class that has students who are working on their communication skills. Being able to draw it sometimes can take that pressure off. They might know the answer, but they are unwilling to want to, at this moment, type it in. So as you can see, you guys can draw or type here. You can change up the colors. You can change up, I think, like the thickness of the mouse as you are drawing. So what is something you could use from today's lesson, and what is one challenge you might encounter using Pear Deck or creating more active and culturally responsive lessons? And I'll give you guys about like 15 more seconds, and then I'll show responses. How's that?
Looks great. So I am jumping, oops, let me unmute my mic for you. I am jumping in as on an iPad, and it seems very simple to do on an iPad too, because then it would have a touch screen.
Yes, I will say the feature on your phone, I am of the mindset, I don't want my phones in my classroom, but there are going to be, I'm at a Ville school, and, sometimes students forget their iPads, or I don't have something for them to use. And, I do let them pull out their phone and use their phone. It is a little more challenging because it is tinier. But, it is an option to, you have a student who's always on their phone. Well, great. Now you have them on their phone doing your lesson. So it's kind of a sneaky way to still make them stay engaged with you. And, I've found that it works. So,
yeah. I also like here how it says, it took me right to that same the same place where you were, so I didn't have to worry about I didn't have to worry about me catching up with you. So
Yes,
cute.
absolutely. Yeah. So you will not, students won't see this part. So if you look at the screen that you are viewing this presentation from, you guys will not see the multiple answers from students in the responses, but you will still see yours. And I do love, this is one, if you have a class where maybe they are still learning to stay on task with you, the instructor pace mode is great, because as soon as you click to the next slide, it takes the student there. So I see there is a few responses. I tried to put it up in a little kind of more grid here, but I am having trouble reading it, so I'm going to go back to that list. I saw someone drawing a pear that was cute. So using questions during presenting content. Okay, yeah, absolutely. This is probably like I would say it's like a great beginner step to using Pear Deck. And then if people aren't one-to-one, it would be challenging. Absolutely. It would be challenging. That is definitely, as far as it is definitely easier to use if you have excuse me, sorry, trying to collect my thoughts. If you do have a school with one-to-one, but it's a great way if you know that you're going to be getting the cart of Chromebooks for the day or the cart of iPads for the day. This is a great way to ensure that students are not going to just be jumping all over the place. I don't know if you guys can see it, but down here, I can see that I have 6 out of 7 responses. So if I know that I had 20 and I'm only getting 6 responses, I say out to the class, like, hey guys, I know we're using, our Chromebooks for today, but I need us to still stay on task. So Pear Deck is a great way. I think, I realize I've not had to teach English in a school without iPads, but that would be the reason I would use Pear Deck still on that day, is to make sure that then my students are moving through the lesson with me. And I think that it would make it really fun to be able to draw and type and be involved in the class on that day that you are using the Chromebooks. So if I scroll, I can show other answers, gamify my whole curriculum. I like it. Operator error. Okay, so many great options, but I am excited to explore. Yeah, absolutely. For me presenting, there's only so much I can show, and it's definitely one of those things, as you play with it more, it gets easier, and as students use it more, it definitely gets easier. So formative assessment tool, paying for the upgrade version. Yes, so right now Pear Deck is doing the 90 days or 60 days. Oof, I feel bad that I don't have that memorized, where you can get as teachers, you can get the upgraded version. But yes, when the new school year does restart up, Pear Deck is a company. I guarantee they're gonna, need to still be bringing in their own money as well. So I do know in the fall that it will probably just be the free version. But with the free version, you still have so many things that you can do. And let's see, using Pear Deck to engage students in discussion. Awesome. And I just want to scroll down because I saw someone drawing a pear and I thought that was really nice. Price, off the top of my head, I don't know the price, but I do know, I believe someone is going to present on Pear Deck tomorrow from Pear Deck, and they probably could help you out with that a lot. So I am going to move on just in time's sake to our next slide. So it's going to prompt you right away to that next slide. So circle how you are feeling. This is one of the social emotional slides that you can use. Sometimes I use this with my students or my class that is maybe more challenging. Like they need a real easy thing when they come in and they pull a Pear Deck, they need something easy, and I need a way to check in, like, how are my students feeling today? So as they are circling, I can see their answers, and it's anonymous. So if I have somebody who did circle the red or the orange, it's anonymous. I probably will be able to know who it is, just based off of, getting to know your students. But it's a way for the class also to kind of prompts them and like, okay, maybe some people are not feeling so well today in class. So I am going to skip this next slide. I know it says give a thank you to someone. I just wanted you to see this one. So it is another one of the social emotional learnings. And what I love about this is, I will change it to say give a thank you to somebody who got working really hard in class today. So you can change up what these slides say.
Do you have the ability, quick question from me actually, do you have the ability to make it where it's not anonymous?
No. So for not for presenting or with students, no, it is just anonymous. The way there isn't a way to add the names as I know of right now, but that definitely would be a good question to ask Pear Deck. But from what I know and playing with it and all the trainings that I've gone through, there is no way to add names. I will say students love putting in their own names though on the writing ones. Like I get people that put like hashtag Ashley. I'm like, okay. So there are some students who are they want people to know that they wrote this or they drew this. So some students do put their name and claim that as their
And you
own.
can use this in conjunction with a Google Meet as well, and
absolutely.
making that super powerful for these NTI days. So my goodness, love it.
Yeah. So just jumping over here, I see I only have probably like 30 seconds left, but this is an example of a math slide. And then it'll pull up here. This is just an example of a social studies slide. All of these slides, you don't have to use the ones that they've created. If you add this little kind of toggle bar the bar that's at the bottom with the pear that's painting, if you add that to your slide becomes interactive. So you don't have to use the pre-made slides, but they are a great way to like just use what's already there and readily the resource that's there. I believe my last slide here is just, the resources I have used to create this. Definitely shout out to Pear Deck and Cult of Pedagogy, and then where I've done some research on equity and culture responsive teaching. And then the last slide for me, how well did you like this lesson? And as a teacher, this can be a little scary putting up, but again, it's anonymous and you'll never know which student said what. But it's a great way to be like, okay, yeah, I thought that lesson maybe didn't go so well today, and it was reflected in my students' responses. Or you're like, oh wow, it actually went really well. So great way to check on your own teaching as well. So
well, Hannah, I think it speaks volumes that for us as teachers to then see how you have used it and that you have become comfortable with it, because as you said, we're going to hear from Pear Deck tomorrow, and it's great because it's more of a from their perspective, but as a teacher from JCPS, this is super great to know that you're using it and you love it as well. So thank you so much. But so I'm going to say goodbye, Hannah, and I hope you have a great day. Thank you again. And you rocked it out, I think. So awesome. So as you are saying goodbye to us, it is 12 o'clock and we're going to take a short break for lunch. But I want to let you know that right after lunch, we have Raymond Yeksik. I think I said his name correct, and he's going to be talking about the JCPS Summer League announcement. So this is huge because we know that we've had to take a little bit of a turn on how we use that for JCPS to accelerate students' learning. And so make sure that you tune in, at 12:30 and let us, and so we can all join and learn about this awesome stuff. So thank you to all of our previous presenters this morning, and we hope that you have a great lunch, and we'll see you back at 12:30.